Let me take you back in time, a time when the Switch was only known by the codename NX, and rumors ran rampant over what kind of features it would have. One of the most prevalent was a GameCube Virtual Console, and really, the expectation made sense. At this point, Nintendo had a Virtual Console for almost all of their past systems. The Wii U alone featured the NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and the DS, while the 3DS covered the original Game Boy. And with Wii games backwards compatible on the Wii U, it was possible to play an amazing gamut of classic games. Except for the GameCube. Well, that and the Virtual Boy, but let's not worry about that. So surely the NX would be powerful enough to fill that gap, to finally have all the GameCube games Nintendo fans remembered growing up with. And then, it didn't happen. At all. In fact, there's still no sign of the GameCube on Switch, even after the implementation of Nintendo Switch Online, a kind of successor to the Virtual Console. To be absolutely clear, this is a massive missed opportunity on Nintendo's part, since it seems like GameCube nostalgia has only grown in intensity since these rumors over 6 years ago. Not bad for a system that only sold 22 million units in its lifetime, far less than the PS2's 155 million. Though perhaps that's why it's so well remembered. Everyone who had one remembered playing many of its biggest games. There's a sense of camaraderie. But what are those games, and are they actually available to play anywhere else? Let's have some fun as I break down almost all of the GameCube's notable exclusives in this tour through memory lane. A sequel to the N64's 1080-degree snowboarding, Avalanche continues the series' focus on downhill racing rather than tricks. Featuring over 20 courses and up to 4-player gameplay, the big new feature was the titular Avalanche event, where players had to stay ahead of an avalanche that could happen at any time. It has never been re-released, and no further sequels have been developed. It hardly needs an introduction, but this was the first Western release of the now ever-present Animal Crossing series. While it lacks much of the customization of later releases, some enjoy the harsher tones of the villagers and featured a handful of NES games that could be played within Animal Crossing itself. It has never been re-released, but New Horizons is available on the Switch. You may have heard of it. Baten Kaitos is the second game ever developed by Monolith Soft with assistance from Tricrescendo, who would go on to develop Eternal Sonata and assist with many games in the Tales of franchise. It's an RPG that features a card-based system that dictates how players interact with the world, as they contain items, weapons, and options that reveal new quests. It has never been re-released, but it did receive a prequel. Set 20 years before the original game, Baten Kaitos Origins focuses on the character of Sagi, who is framed for assassination. While many of the same locations return, though altered, there are new places to visit as well. The party now pulls from a singular deck of cards in battle rather than each character having their own. The game was never released in Europe and, like the first, has never had a re-release. A spin-off of the Advance Wars series, Battalion Wars focuses more on real-time battles where units are controlled from a third-person perspective. Infantry, armored units, and aircraft are all available eventually through the mission-based structure. It's also possible to play as another faction during unlockable bonus missions. While the game has never been re-released, it did receive a sequel on the Wii. Bomberman Generation is a cel-shaded action-adventure that removes Bomberman from his typical grid, at least for the single player. Puzzles and collectible creatures vary up the gameplay, while power-ups can be found to make combat easier. Multiplayer features up to 4 players with 5 different modes to choose from. The game has never been re-released, but it did receive a direct sequel, Bomberman Jetters, on both GameCube and PlayStation 2. The cult favorite Chibi Robo features the titular tiny robot whose mission is to help a family in their daily lives in the hopes of being the best helper it can be. As it explores the home, it can upgrade its battery power and create fellow helpers to make it even more efficient. While Chibi Robo has received many sequels, its fans would argue that none have captured the original spirit, as many ventured into other genres. The game was re-released on the Wii as part of the New Play Control series, but only in Japan. Co-developed by Intelligent Systems, Cubivore is an odd game that casts the player as an animal who hopes to topple the tyrannical king of the beasts that has caused nature to fade away. The cube-shaped animal must attack and devour others in order to evolve even better traits and pass those on to its offspring through mating in hopes of someday becoming strong enough to defeat the king. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the game has never gotten a sequel or a re-release. Although the 4th game in the series, Custom Robo on the GameCube was the first to be released in North America, though Europe still missed out. Players take the role of a young boy thrust into robo-battling while investigating the disappearance of his late father. Robos are small, highly customizable toy robots that can battle one another in a virtual arena. Those who have played it consider it one of the GameCube's hidden gems. It has never been ported, but a DS sequel, Custom Robo Arena, did release in all territories, though this was the last game in the series to this day. Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix is Dance Dance Revolution, but with a Mario aesthetic. Nothing about the gameplay has changed from standard DDR, though it does feature a story where Waluigi is the main villain. To this day, it's still the only time that has happened. There are only 29 songs in the game featuring remixes from Mario games like Mario Kart, Mario Party, Mario Paint, and Paper Mario, as well as classical songs of all things. It has never gotten a sequel or seen a re-release of any kind. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was the third game to feature controls utilizing the DK bongos, and was unique in that it was a platformer rather than a rhythm game. There were rhythm elements though, as players were encouraged to increase their score by collecting bananas that increased the beat meter. It was lauded at the time due to its level design and implementation of the bongos. Although it didn't get a sequel, it was re-released on the Wii as part of the New Play Control series, where the controls were altered to play more traditionally while altering levels to accommodate this. This version was then released digitally on the Wii U eShop. Developed by the same team behind Taiko no Tatsujin, Donkey Konga is a rhythm game based around the DK bongos. 3 games were eventually created, though the third was never released outside of Japan. Critics found the games to be chaotic fun on higher difficulties, while the song selection featured tracks from Nintendo franchises like Mario and Zelda alongside traditional pop songs. However, in North America, those songs were shortened covers. There are 30 songs each in the first 2 games, though the song selection differs somewhat between regions, while the third game features close to 60. Each game also had a selection of minigames to play. None of them have ever been re-released though. Originally released as a launch title for Japan's 64DD peripheral, Doshin the Giant is a god game focused around the titular entity. An enhanced version was released on the GameCube and did see a European release, though the North American version was cancelled. Players control Doshin as he helps or hinders the people of an island, absorbing their love or hate to grow. The ultimate goal is to bring the different people of this island together. It never received further sequels, though most in the West might recognize Doshin mainly from his trophy in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Considered one of the best horror games of all time, Eternal Darkness tells the story of a young woman learning of her family's dark history after the grisly murder of her grandfather. By exploring his manor, she discovers excerpts of people across time who have encountered powerful artifacts and otherworldly beings. This can warp the sanity of the people, which in turn can mess with the player, the standout feature of the game. Combat is kept basic, though it is possible to cast magic or target specific body parts of enemies. The game has never been re-released, and due to the many troubles of developer Silicon Knights, no sequel was ever made. Developed by Sega's Amusement Vision, F-Zero GX is the successor to the N64's F-Zero X and featured faster speeds, new tracks, and a story mode focusing on Captain Falcon. Up to 4 players could race in Versus mode with several options for customization. The game is considered by some to be incredibly difficult to the point of frustration, but many others view it as one of the best games on the GameCube. GX has never been re-released, and there have been no console sequels since, though there were 2 entries on the Game Boy Advance. Famous at the time as the first Final Fantasy game developed for a Nintendo console since Final Fantasy VI, Crystal Chronicles made use of the GBA link cable for its multiplayer, which much of the game is designed around. Cooperative and competitive elements are introduced in this action RPG, where players clear levels as they set out in their caravan. It was highly regarded at the time despite the sheer number of accessories needed to enjoy it at its best. There have been a number of Crystal Chronicles sequels, though none emulated the exact style of gameplay. The original game did receive a remaster on PS4 and Switch, though the new online mode was heavily criticized for its player inconvenience. Path of Radiance was the third Fire Emblem game to be released in the West, and the first console game in the series since the Super Nintendo. The story focuses on the fan-favorite character of Ike, as he and a group of mercenaries must protect a princess from assassination by an invading empire. It also introduced shapeshifting units that had their own advantages, in addition to the weapon triangle. While it's not considered the prettiest game on the GameCube, its story, characters, and gameplay are lauded amongst the series. It has never been re-released, making it one of the rarest games on the system, though it did receive a direct sequel on the Wii. Geist was Nintendo's second ever M-rated game after Eternal Darkness, and while it didn't meet the same level of critical or commercial success, it was lauded for its unique idea. Cast as a man whose soul was forcefully removed from his body, the player must possess different objects and people in order to traverse the many levels of the game. Human hosts had to be scared in order to be possessed, and the player could utilize their specialities to access new areas. Unfortunately, there was only ever one method of solving puzzles, restricting the amount of creativity that would shine in a game like this. Subsequently, the game was never given a sequel or a re-release. For many, Killer 7 was the game that put Suda51 on the map. Players take the role of an assassin with 7 different personalities that each have their own style. Levels take place on rails as enemies can be targeted at specific points. There are also puzzles to solve which require a particular personality, though it may need to be unlocked in that level by performing a certain number of kills. Its unique style and mature content led the game to cult status, with every aspect either lauded or criticized. While it received no sequel, it did eventually get a PC re-release in 2018. The final Kirby game directed by Masahiro Sakurai, Kirby Air Ride is notable because of its one-button control. The races come in 3 modes: Air Ride, which is more of a standard race featuring Kirby and copy abilities, Top Ride, which is viewed from above and kept simple, and City Trial, the fan favorite that has players search a city for power-ups before facing off in a random showdown. Though derided at the time for its simplicity, it's now considered one of the most fun multiplayer games on the GameCube. However, it has never been re-released and there's no sequel in sight. Kuruin Squash is the third and, to date, final release of the Kuruin series, which began on the Game Boy Advance with Kuru Kuru Kururin. While that first game saw a European release, that didn't hold true for the sequels. North Americans never got the game and tend to only recognize it from the Hellerin Assist Trophy in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The series is a puzzler where players must navigate the constantly rotating Hellerin through a maze without touching any walls. It's seen as a fine example of a simple but addictive puzzler, though it has never gotten a re-release. The Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventure sees Link taking hold of the Four Sword in order to take on the threat of Vaati and fighting himself split into 4 bodies. Players can team up by using the GBA link cable, with individual players tracking what they're doing on the Game Boy Advance screen while inside caves. It often encourages players to work together while competing for gems in always chaotic action. However, due to the link cable requirement, it was often difficult getting a full group. The Japanese version also features a mode called Navi Trackers that has players competing to find members of Tetra's pirate crew before time runs out. While it received a kind of spiritual successor in Triforce Heroes, that game didn't quite capture the same feel as Four Swords Adventures. It has also never been re-released. Ocarina of Time for the GameCube was notable because of its inclusion of Master Quest. This was originally an alternate version of the game with a harder difficulty and remix puzzles and dungeons planned for the 64DD add-on. Although it was finished, that version was cancelled due to the difficulties with the add-on, but it was finally included here. However, Master Quest was also part of the Ocarina of Time 3D remaster that was ported to the 3DS. Though better known as a Wii launch title, Twilight Princess is notable on GameCube for not being mirrored to accommodate Link using his sword with his right hand. Otherwise, this is the Zelda adventure you know and love that has since been remastered on the Wii U. Likewise, The Wind Waker is the first Zelda game to be released on the GameCube. It suffered from complaints of its art style at the time, but has since been re-evaluated. The game is now considered a classic, with its remaster for the Wii U lauded as the best version. Developed by From Software in the days before striking it big with Demon's Souls, Lost Kingdoms is an action RPG featuring a card system. While the player can dodge attacks and position themselves for their own, every attack is done through a card. Despite this, experience points from battle are important, as they are then used to enhance and transform the existing deck. There's also a multiplayer battle mode where players can use their decks against one another. It's never been re-released, but it did get a sequel. Speaking of, Lost Kingdoms 2 takes place generations after the original, with a new protagonist and gameplay that is mostly the same. New cards have been added, with some cards allowing the player to choose between 2 different effects. There's also a new type of card that transforms the player into different creatures. Finally, it's possible to pay double for any card to have its effect greatly enhanced. However, there have been no further sequels and, again, no sign of any kind of re-release. Though initially criticized for its short length and unwieldy controls, Luigi's Mansion has been re-evaluated as a hallmark title. The many ghosts make it highly replayable, while the game marked the beginning of Luigi truly carving out his own personality. It has since gotten 2 sequels, with the third game on the Switch, while this game was ported to the 3DS. As a sequel to the N64 original, many felt Mario Golf Toadstool Tour was too similar in terms of features, but the new courses, modes, and characters still make it a fan favorite. The series has continued on to this day, but could be seen as less feature-rich than this release. Mario Kart Double Dash is still one of the most unique entries thanks to the two riders on each cart. One would drive while the other managed items, and they could swap at any time in order to carry another item or use the one the driver's holding. The characters all have unique special items that they can access as well, leading to some strategy as far as which are chosen. It was also possible to have up to 16 players racing thanks to land play and the doubling mechanic. The game itself has never been re-released, but many of its courses can be found in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch. As the first Mario Party on the GameCube, 4 kept things mostly simple and didn't change the formula too much. With 6 new boards and 60 new minigames, it's considered a solid entry in the series. It's also the last time Donkey Kong was playable until Mario Party 10. None of the GameCube Mario Parties have ever been re-released, though their minigames have been featured in compilations. Mario Party 5 attempted to change up the formula somewhat thanks to the new DK space, which acted as a helpful counterpart to Bowser spaces along with the capsule system. Now items could be placed on spaces in order to affect other players in addition to being used immediately. Along with new bonus modes, there were 7 new boards and 77 new minigames. In recent years, Mario Party 6 has been viewed more and more positively thanks to its day and night mechanics. Depending on the time of day, different effects will occur, changing up the strategies and possibilities. It also made nominal use of the GameCube's microphone attachment in certain minigames, bringing the total to 82. Each of the 6 boards also featured a unique way of acquiring stars. Mario Party 7 expanded on the idea of each board requiring a different method to earn stars. Much of it remained the same, including the use of the microphone, but there was 88 new minigames to encounter. One of its more notable features was an 8-player mode, where 2 players would team up on a single controller to compete. Mario Power Tennis takes the core ideas of the previous tennis game on Nintendo 64 with a host of standard and gimmick courts to enjoy. There are plenty of new modes and special games that shake up the tennis formula, leading to a ton of variety. The game did receive a port to the Wii through the new Play Control series, though it's seen as inferior due to imprecise motion controls. Mario's sports series continued to grow on the GameCube, with him branching out into baseball with Mario Superstar Baseball. It featured both an exhibition mode and challenge mode, though the latter is where the bulk of the gameplay was found. Players use a pre-built team to take on the rest and eventually challenge Bowser. However, after each victory, it's possible to recruit new teammates and purchase permanent upgrades at the shop. There's a lot of unlockables to collect, making the game highly replayable and a fan favorite. It did receive a sequel on the Wii, but has never been re-released. Despite the upcoming release of the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection next year, there is one game left behind from that series, Mega Man Network Transmission. Taking place a month after the events of the first game, Network Transmission is a combination of classic Mega Man action gameplay with the battle chips from Battle Network. These power up Mega Man.exe during the mostly linear levels, creating a hybrid of the two. However, many found the game to be punishingly difficult, which may explain why it was the only one of its kind. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes is a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid that utilizes much of the graphics technology and gameplay possibilities of Metal Gear Solid 2. The cutscenes were redone with more of an action flair, especially bullet time, while the entire English cast re-recorded their lines to ensure higher quality. The game was well received, but the new gameplay additions had the effect of making the game much easier than before. This version of Metal Gear Solid has never been re-released though. Considered to be one of the best games in the Metroid franchise, Metroid Prime took the at the time risky move of turning the series into a first-person adventure. But the new visor system, as well as the excellently designed world, won fans over, leading it to becoming one of the best-selling entries. It was eventually re-released on the Wii and Wii U as part of the Metroid Prime trilogy. Metroid Prime 2 is a shift from the original, with a heavier focus on story and the concept of a light and dark world. The dark world could feel frustrating in the opening hours though, as exposure to it led to continual damage, making it seem as if there was less freedom. There's plenty to enjoy after that hurdle, with new abilities translated into 3D, but many did find the game to be more difficult. There is a multiplayer mode, though it was hardly a focus upon release and is often forgotten. While the Naruto Ultimate Ninja games released on the PlayStation 2 with a focus on arcade action, the Naruto Clash of Ninja series was more grounded, playing like a traditional 3D fighter. It only covered the content of the first 19 episodes, limiting the amount of playable characters and content. Clash of Ninja 2 was able to flesh out much of its content thanks to it covering up to the end of the Chunin exam arc. But even beyond the 12 new characters, the game allowed for 4-player arena battles and a tag team mode. There were also goals that players could fulfill in order to unlock new content to buy at the shop, expanding the options for the single player. Clash of Ninja 3 itself was never released outside of Japan, though its port, Clash of Ninja Revolution for the Wii, was. However, that version featured less characters and features despite the updated engine. As far as new content, the third entry added team specials to the tag team mode, as well as a 3-man squad mode, which was a 3-on-3 battle. The game covered the events up until the Search for Tsunade arc. The final Clash of Ninja entry on the GameCube was also Japan exclusive and saw no future ports. This entry covered the events up until the Sasuke retrieval arc and saw some of the most changes. The shop was removed in favor of a mission mode, and here players had to take on ever stronger opponents under a variety of circumstances. It also introduced unique team specials to the returning 3-man squad mode. The game was never re-released, though the series kept going into the Shippuden era of the show on the Wii. The Nintendo Puzzle Collection is a compilation of enhanced versions of Dr. Mario, Panel de Pon, and Yoshi's Cookie, all with improved visuals, music, and 4-person multiplayer. Dr. Mario is a port of Dr. Mario 64, Yoshi's Cookie is an update to the SNES version with a brand new story mode, and Panel de Pon is a sequel to the original featuring the descendants of the original cast. It's a shame then that this collection has never been released outside of Japan or seen any kind of re-release. PN03 may be best remembered as one of the Capcom 5 Capcom games exclusive to the GameCube, though many didn't remain that way. PN03 did, however, and was met with a mixed critical reception despite being directed by Shinji Mikami. The game focused on defensive and evasive maneuvers that gave a dance-like quality to the action, though the player could not move and shoot at the same time. The game has never been given a sequel or port, and is often forgotten among Capcom's vast library of titles. Pac-Man Vs. is unique in that it was designed by Shigeru Miyamoto as a tech demo to show off the possibilities of the GBA link cable. One player plays traditional Pac-Man on their GBA, while the other players control Ghost on the TV, creating an early example of the asynchronous gameplay that would be championed on the Wii U. Namco loved the idea and published it to critical success, but some bemoaned the lack of options. The game has never gotten a sequel, but it was ported to the DS and Switch through the Namco Museum DS and Namco Museum Switch compilations. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door barely needs an introduction. Mario finds himself in the town of Rogueport, where a mysterious map leads to Peach getting kidnapped by a new enemy. The game expanded upon the paper aesthetic with new transformations for Mario to learn, while battles were enhanced with new mechanics and partners. While it has obviously received sequels, this is the last game to play like a traditional RPG. To the consternation of many, it has never been re-released. As one of the games released within the GameCube's launch window, Pikmin has become synonymous with the system. A passion project of Shigeru Miyamoto, the game sees the tiny Captain Olimar crash landing on a foreign planet. There, he learns he can command groups of the titular native creatures to defeat large enemies while gathering the broken pieces of his ship within 30 days. The game was a modest sales success with a passionate fanbase, which led to a new play control port to the Wii and a sequel on the GameCube 3 years later. Pikmin 2 sought to fix many of the complaints of the first game, namely the limited time. Instead, Olimar and his new partner Louie must work together with the Pikmin to gather valuable items to pay off their company's debt. 2 new Pikmin types were introduced, as well as multi-level caves, which provided an element of dungeon crawling. Critics of the time lauded the changes, though it's highly debated which game is superior nowadays. Like the original, it received a new play control port on the Wii. Pokemon Channel is certainly an oddity due to the low interactivity of it all. You are tasked by Professor Oak along with a Pikachu to test his new television network that's designed to bring Pokemon and trainers together. Different channels allow the player to do different things, such as answer trivia, learn art, or buy collectibles. Unsurprisingly, the game received mixed reactions upon release and has never gotten a sequel nor a port. As the successor to the Pokemon Stadium games, Pokemon Coliseum combined the ability to battle your Pokemon from the GBA titles on console with a brand new 3D adventure. That adventure went in a different direction though, with no wild Pokemon and a focus on double battles with other trainers. These choices and the darker storyline has made it a favorite among fans, though it has never been ported elsewhere. However, it did receive a sequel. Pokemon XD dropped the stadium elements in favor of telling a sequel story focused around the ideas of Coliseum. This includes the double battle focus and need to purify shadow Pokemon to make them usable. Although it upgraded some elements of the original game, it was heavily criticized for reusing much of the content. Like that game, Gale of Darkness has never been re-released, and there have been no further sequels. The Resident Evil remake, along with Resident Evil 0 and 4, are hallmarks of the GameCube, with some of the most impressive visuals on the system. But they're not exactly exclusive anymore. While 1 and 0 stayed on the GameCube for a while, 4 was put on the PS2 almost immediately, with slightly downgraded graphics but more content. And since then, all 3 games have been ported to just about everything. Porting the PS1 versions of Resident Evil 2 and 3 felt like a strange move at the time, especially when many would have preferred remakes in the vein of the original, but they've only become more important over time. That's because the last time these versions were released was as part of the PlayStation 3's PSN service. Sure, there's the new remakes, but those are fundamentally different games to the PS1 classics, which look their best on the GameCube. Viewed by the developers as a director's cut of the original Dreamcast game, Skies of Arcadia Legends is a cult favorite RPG from Sega. Taking the role of the sky pirate Vice, players explored the skybound world of Arcadia as they sought to stop an empire from unleashing an ancient force of nature. Featuring improved visuals, load times, and encounter rates, the game is a hidden gem, though it has never received a sequel or port. Sonic Adventure DX is an enhanced port of Sonic's first Dreamcast adventure, and there's some debate over whether it, or the original, is better. But it did feature an attempt to bring the game to 60 FPS while adding new content like being able to unlock all 12 Sonic games on the Game Gear and a playable Metal Sonic. This is the version that was ported to the PS3, 360, and PC as an HD upgrade. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was one of the earliest examples of Sega going third-party, and it proved to be a massive hit on the GameCube. While it didn't add as much as Adventure DX later would, it did refine the chow-raising aspects, which likely explains why the mode is still so beloved to this day. Like Adventure DX, Adventure 2 was given an HD port on the PS3, 360, and PC. While it is a multi-platform release, Soul Calibur 2 really is synonymous with the GameCube thanks to its guest character on the console being Link. It also helps that it was one of the best 3D fighters of its time, keeping battles fast and frenetic with extra modes that allowed for plenty of single-player content. There have been many Soul Calibur games released since then, but this is still the only one to feature a Nintendo guest character. It did receive an online-enabled HD port to the PS3 and 360, but obviously didn't include Link. Rare's final game developed for Nintendo, Star Fox Adventures, took Fox McCloud out of his R-Wing and off to explore a new dinosaur planet. Taking more than a few pages from The Legend of Zelda, the game is often criticized, but far from bad. Many just find Fox out of place, though it did lead to the introduction of Crystal. However, the game has never been re-released. Cementing Crystal as part of the Star Fox cast, Star Fox Assault has the crew facing off against a new threat that sees Fox fighting not only in the R-Wing, but on foot as well. While some felt the on-foot control was a bit unwieldy, the game is looked upon pretty favorably now, if only for continuing Fox's story. Multiplayer was also emphasized with a handful of modes to play with a group of friends. Assault has never been ported beyond the GameCube though. Rogue Squadron 2 was one of the standout launch titles for the GameCube and still looks impressive to this day. Taking players from the end of A New Hope to original missions and finally to the climax of Return of the Jedi, the game featured plenty of iconic Star Wars moments and vehicles. The game was highly praised at the time, though some bemoaned the lack of multiplayer. While Rogue Squadron hasn't been re-released, it did get a sequel. Rogue Squadron 3 sought to fix many of the issues of the previous game while offering a new way to experience the classic Star Wars moments. To this end, on-foot missions were introduced, though many critics found them clunky in execution. However, there was a complete co-op campaign that took players through the missions of Rogue Squadron 2 rebalanced for the multiplayer aspect. Like the previous game, it has never been re-released, and there have been no further sequels. Super Mario Strikers was the first game developed by Next Level Games directly for Nintendo and immediately set itself apart from other Mario sports titles. Its harder edge and distinctive art style won it plenty of fans, while the soccer was solid and fun throughout. Mario mainstays would act as the captains, while secondary characters would fill in the rest of the four-man team. Despite it receiving 2 sequels, there's enough unique about the original that it can stand on its own, though it has never been re-released. Super Mario Sunshine is certainly an odd duck compared to the other 3D Mario games, but there's enough charm here that it doesn't matter. The theming is on point if limited, and it offers up a lot of challenge for those seeking it. The water pack Flood certainly changes up Mario's movement, making it feel off when it's occasionally taken away. For the longest time, it never received a re-release, at least until Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Switch, though that was in a limited capacity. As one of the GameCube's launch titles, Super Monkey Ball took the odd concept of leading a monkey and a ball toward the goal and made it immensely fun. Much of that comes from the fact that players control the environment and not the monkey, leading to a lot of challenge in later levels. Multiplayer was also encouraged thanks to a bevy of minigames that are still beloved to this day. The sequel would introduce new levels, a story mode, and 6 new multiplayer modes, along with the 6 previous ones. They've recently been ported to modern consoles as part of the Banana Mania pack, though there were some changes that keep the original releases distinct. Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64 might have gotten people into the concept, but Melee is arguably where it took off. 14 new characters, an expanded move list, loads of single-player content, collectible trophies, and a battle system that is still lauded to this day. It also showed just how influential the series could be, as the inclusion of Fire Emblem's Marth and Roy led to enough curiosity that Fire Emblem was finally localized for the West. However, Melee itself has never gotten a re-release. Tales of Symphonia is perhaps the premier RPG on the GameCube at this point, as it marked the moment many Western players discovered the long-running series. Combining endearing characters and an action-heavy combat system, it tells the tale of Lloyd, who goes on a journey with his childhood friend to restore the world with mana. However, the two will learn many dark truths the farther they go. The game was ported to the PS2 in Japan with extra content, and it was that version that was used for the HD re-release on PlayStation 3 and PC. That version is also the basis of the remaster that is coming to modern consoles in 2023. It also received a direct sequel on the Wii. Directed by Hideki Kamiya, Beautiful Joe is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up where the titular Joe gains special powers, allowing him to transform into a superhero as well as speed up or slow down time. These powers can enhance his attacks by making them stronger or faster, and tie into puzzle solving as well. The game can be incredibly difficult, but the sense of style and fun humor made it a favorite at the time, leading to several sequels. While it was ported to the PS2, Beautiful Joe has never been re-released. By the time of Beautiful Joe 2's release, the development team of the first game had been renamed into Clover Studio, making this their first official game despite being composed of the same staff. While Joe himself didn't change, he was joined by his girlfriend Sylvia, who gains replay powers to redo actions up to 3 times in a row. The two share health and can be swapped between at any time, which also means that this isn't a co-op game. Beautiful Joe 2 was just as well received and was also ported to the PS2, but it hasn't been re-released otherwise. Although Beautiful Joe 3 has yet to happen, it did receive a spin-off on the GameCube. Beautiful Joe Red Hot Rumble is a platform fighter that took inspiration from Super Smash Bros. It's based more on the anime that was airing at the time, implementing some of the original characters from there. The game was only mildly received and saw a port on the PSP, but not the PS2. There, it included extra characters from Devil May Cry, as well as a brand new extra mode. However, like the other Beautiful Joe games, it has not been re-released. Developed by Treasure of Ikaruga and Gunstar Heroes fame, Wario World is Wario's first foray into 3D and is actually more of a beat-em-up with platforming elements. When Wario's castle is taken over by a cursed jewel, he must fight back in order to reclaim his money. The game was considered a bit repetitive despite its short length, though many felt there were inventive ideas to encounter. However, the game has never been re-released. WarioWare on the GameCube is mostly a remake of the first game on the Game Boy Advance, with a greater focus on multiplayer. Because of that, most of the micro games are reused from that version, leading to some feeling there was too much reused content. But the multiplayer was seen as genuinely fun and did capture the anarchic nature of WarioWare for those who missed it on handheld. The game has never been ported, but the WarioWare series continues to this day. Another of the GameCube's launch titles, Wave Race Blue Storm, was highly praised at the time for its water and weather effects, along with its physics. Alternatively, much of the content was similar to that of Wave Race 64, with new controls that took more time to adjust to. Still, it's well remembered today despite there being no further sequels, nor any signs of a re-release. The GameCube may not have had a library as massive as the PlayStation 2's, but that doesn't mean it's not without games to play. Many are hallmarks of their genre or offer up something unique and offbeat. Most of them can still only be played on the GameCube, and that might be why it's so well remembered. Maybe someday Nintendo will open the vault and allow some of these games to be enjoyed again in an official capacity. But who knows how long that'll take. In the meantime, what are some of your favorite games on the GameCube? Are there any that you wish people would talk about more? And are there any exclusive gems that I missed? Let me know in the comments, and as always, please consider subscribing to Good Vibes Gaming, hitting the like button, and ringing that bell. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/dvgaming with plenty of extra perks. Until next time, bye!